Hey everyone, I'm Lauren McMillan, and today we're doing a quick sequence focusing on crow pose. This is part of our Yoga Foundation series where we take certain poses, slow them down, break them down, get back to the basics, get down to the foundations, so that when you take them into a studio class, you can go in there feeling much more equipped to land into the pose, to be confident about it, and ultimately to keep yourself safe. So let's get to it. To begin, come to your hands and knees. We're going to warm up the core, we're going to open up the hips a little bit, and we're going to strengthen the upper body. All major factors when it comes to making your way into crow pose. So, keeping the arms relatively straight, try not to lock out the elbows, but keep them straight. Hug your shoulder blades together, let your heart melt down toward the floor. And then push your hands into the floor, spread the shoulder blades apart, maybe slightly rounding in the upper back. Do that again. So these are some scapular push-ups. As you do them, maybe you feel the scapula gliding along the back, just starting to mobilize them, open up the shoulders a bit. Maybe you start to feel the shoulders working and the arms working. Let's take a few more here. And then come back to a neutral spine, tuck the toes under, engage your core, hover the knees. Not lifting them very high, just an inch or so off the mat, breathe, press down through the hands, and then release. We'll do that one more time. So coming forward, toes are tucked, core is drawing in, hover the knees, building some heat. Breathe. For 3, 2, 1, release. Take your knees to the outer edges of your mat. Big toes touch, heels fall apart. Come back to child's pose. Opening through the shoulders as the arms reach forward, opening through the hips. Take a few slow, full cycles of breath here. At the end of your next exhale, carefully lift your hips, return to your hands and knees. Walk your hands a little bit closer together, just so that they're in line with the shoulders. And we're going to do a few practice chaturanga push-ups here. So, if you're able to do full chaturanga push-ups, be my guest. However, I'm going to be doing these from my knees today. You're going to hug your elbows close to your sides, bend the elbows, lower no more than halfway down, and then press down through your knuckles to come back up. And again, so what you may find, even if you're doing this on your knees, is that doing them slowly really doesn't take long to work at all. Draw the core in, try not to let the hips collapse down. And notice we're not hinging over the wrist. That'll create a lot of pressure in the wrist, but we're leaving a little bit of space there to prevent that from happening. Let's do 2 more. And then send the hips back over the heels, child's pose. Come forward to your hands and knees once again. This time lower down to your forearm. We're making our way into a forearm plank. You can have your hands separated and the fingers spread wide on the mat, or you can interlace the fingers, having them clasped. Try to keep your elbows directly below the shoulders. Maybe try not to let them splay out to the sides, but keep them as a strong support below the shoulders. And then step one foot back, followed by the other. Hips are in line with the torso. You're creating one long and strong forearm plank. Breathe here. You can stay right here, focus on your breathing. You can always drop down to the knees if you'd like. If you want to move with this, maybe hinge forward onto the toes. Exhale, bring it back. And again. Let's do 2 more. Last one. Pause. Dip your hips to the right, getting into the obliques now. And then to the left, to the right, and left. 2 more sets. And last one. As you come back to center, lower the hips down, untuck the toes, separate the forearms so that they are flat now. Press your arms into the mat and then drag them backwards so that your heart can open through the shoulders for Sphinx pose. As you're ready, release, press your hands into the floor. Come up to a tabletop position and then drop your hips to one side. Swing the legs out in front. We're gonna give the arms a break and open up the hips a little bit more. Bringing the soles of the feet together. Let the knees fall out wide. You can walk your sits bones back so that you have more space to lengthen through the spine and find a natural position for the lower back. You can always bring your feet a little bit closer to the body. Personally, I find it more comfortable in my body to take the feet a little bit further away. Roll the shoulders back, lift the heart, and let's start by bending at the elbows and just hinging forward with a long spine. Carefully sit back up. And then we'll do that again, hinge forward. This time come forward a little bit more. And when you can't go any further, just let the spine round and the head drop. You can use your elbows to gently press your knees further away, not forcing them down, but just let them be a little extra weight, opening up the hips a little bit more. If you want, you can reach the arms away from you. Start to sit up tall once again. Bring the knees together. Reach the right leg forward. Keep the left leg bent. Bring your foot toward your inner thigh. And then take your leg out at something of an angle out to the side. Take your right hand to the lower leg. Left arm reaches up. Take a side bend to the right, drawing back through the right toes. Inhale, come up to center. Let's switch sides, bringing the right foot in. Left leg is out and to the side. Left hand to the left leg. Right arm reaches up. Lean to the left. Come back up to center. Bend into the left knee. We're going to make our way to a forward fold. So cross at the ankles, come on to your hands and knees, and then lift the hips. Let's walk our hands back to the feet. Really, however you want to get there, just come to a forward fold. And then heel to your feet out wide to the outer edges of your mat. Take the toes out, heels are in. Start to lower the hips down so we're coming into a low squat. If your heels come off the floor, that's perfectly fine. You can always roll up the back of your mat and place it underneath the heels. Bring your hands toward your heart, lifting your heart to your thumbs. Use your elbows to gently press your knees away from you. Keep the spine long. And then from here, we're going to make our way into crow pose. So I'm using a block today. It's a nice little tool that you can use to get yourself accustomed to balancing on your hands and shifting your weight forward. If you don't have a block, you can use something similar, probably something that's not like a brick. Don't use that. But if you don't have it, that's totally fine. So a couple of ways to come into crow pose. One is from a yoga squat, just like this. Your body is already kind of in the same position that you're going to be in once you take flight. And then we'll also come into it from a forward fold. So if you're coming into crow pose from a squat, for those of you using a block, I have it on the tallest level. It's going to be right in the middle of my mat. Shift your weight into your hands. Start to lift your hips. So you will walk the feet in and the legs in a little bit, but you still got that external rotation and that opening in the hips. Now from here, fingers are spread wide. Have your hands turned out at about 11 and 1. Ground down through the palms. And then first just get accustomed to the feeling of shifting your weight into the hands. Ground down through the hands. Maybe while you're here, you lift one leg and then the other. Again, just getting used to that feeling. You can also do this by bringing your forehead down to the block. Sometimes it's scary to come into arm balances like crow pose because there's that fear of once you take your head down, you may just face plant. Okay, when you're ready to go further, walk your feet in a little bit, bend at the knees, bend your elbows, just like we did in those chaturanga push-ups, and bring your knees to your triceps. You can also practice this or come into it another way by taking your knees outside the arms, and you're going to squeeze your knees into your arms, hugging everything to the midline. In either position, heels come together, hug the heels together. Maybe you lift one foot at a time. Again, you can bring your forehead to a block so that you can kind of forget about the head for a moment. When you're ready to remove the block and come into the pose without it, a key point to remember is the direction of your gaze. As you come forward and you shift your weight into your hands, there's this tendency to let the head drop. So we're looking back and seeing what our feet are doing, but the weight of the head and the direction of the gaze make it so that when you lower the head down, you have a much higher likelihood of doing a somersault forward, face planting. I've done it before, learn from my mistake. Rather, take your gaze forward toward the front edge of your mat, maybe even beyond, so that you have this action of lifting forward and up rather than down and back. So, shift your weight into your hands, draw the core in, take your gaze forward, lift one foot, maybe another, and fly. So to come into this from a forward fold, you would essentially have the same setup. Folding forward, plant the hands down, lift the heels, bend into the knees, maybe bringing them to the triceps or the outsides of the arms. And there you are. Thank you for sharing your practice with me today. I hope you enjoyed this quick crow pose sequence. Namaste.